Louisiana has just passed a law requiring the Ten Commandments be posted in all classrooms for all students in the state from kindergarten to universities. Yes, even university students are unable to find their own moral compass in that state, without the state telling them which moral compass is the right one to use. Let's have a chat. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me, and especially to my patrons and channel members. Today, we are looking at an article from the Associated Press on Louisiana's new law requiring the Ten Commandments be posted in classrooms. It says, the legislation that Republican Governor Jeff Landry signed into law on Wednesday requires a poster-sized display of the Ten Commandments in large, easily readable font in all public classrooms from kindergarten to state-funded universities. Evidently, students in private universities can figure it out for themselves. I'm wondering about private K through 12 schools. Does the law apply to them? Yes, if they receive state funds. So schools that don't accept vouchers or any other state-funded program are exempt. Makes sense. They don't get any government funding. The government should have no say in what they do in their classrooms. Except the government does tell private schools what they must teach in order to be accredited. If they really are concerned with the morals of the youth of their state, why not tie it to accreditation to make the private schools teach it too? Not that I want private schools teaching the Ten Commandments. It's just that if the purpose of the law is to ensure that students in Louisiana get a proper moral education, why exempt students in private schools? Since most of the private schools are religious schools, they already have this in their curriculum. The few that don't tend to be the elite, secular private schools. The ones that the lawmakers send their own kids to. So basically, this law is for the rest of all y'all, because we lawmakers already know right from wrong. The nature of the display shall be determined by each governing authority, with a minimum requirement that the Ten Commandments shall be displayed on a poster or frame document that is at least 11 inches by 14 inches. The text of the commandments shall be the central focus of the poster or frame document and shall be printed in a large, easily readable font. The text shall read as follows. We'll get into the text in a minute. So it needs to be a poster or framed document. The Ten Commandments need to be the central focus. So you can't do this or this. But how about this? I know you can't read it. The print is large and in an easily readable font. At least it would be large to an aphid. Or how about this? The print is large and the font is readable. It's just that the ink is so close to the background color, it's unreadable. Or how about this? You don't know what's on the poster as the map is covering it. Educators that want to get around the law still can. The text must say, you know what? Why don't we read these Ten Commandments and compare them to how Trump has done in keeping them? Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make to thyself any graven images. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his cattle, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Okay, he did okay on the parents one, so he's 1 for 10. Will teachers need to explain what adultery is to kindergartners? I thought you were trying to get explanations of sexual activity out of the classroom. How about taking the Lord's name in vain? Will teachers need to explain the theology of that? They can't. So when Jamie asks, what does that mean? The teacher has to say, go ask your parents. Because explaining what it means would clearly be crossing the line and teaching religion in the classroom. The teacher could even be accused of proselytizing. I also foresee problems with the last commandment. The man's wife is listed with his property. Are Louisiana kids going to be taught that women are property? Will you end up inflating the egos of the boys to the detriment of the girls? Will the girls get the message that they are lesser beings and they will be owned by their husbands? This next section I see as problematic as well. This subsection does not require a public or non-public school governing authority to spend its funds to purchase displays. A governing authority may spend its funds or donated funds to purchase the displays and may accept donated displays. The school is not required to spend government money to purchase these. The AP article says that state funds will not be used to buy the posters. They will come from donations. However, the language of the bill doesn't say this. It says the schools may but are not required to use their funds to buy the posters. The school buying the posters from a religious organization to put in the classrooms is a clear violation of separation of church and state. How the whole thing is, why should I just pretend about this one part? If the AP article is right that schools can't use their funds for the posters, what if the school doesn't get a donation? What are they supposed to do? If they don't put the posters up, they're in violation of the law. But if they don't have any posters, they aren't allowed to use their funds to buy them. This would be a ridiculous law. Is there any penalty for violation? There isn't one in the bill, but it does provide the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education shall adopt rules and regulations in accordance with the Administrative Procedure Act to ensure the proper implementation of this section. So the state school board is supposed to enforce this, but we aren't told how. If Bible God were the one enforcing it, the answer would be the death penalty.
Get him out of here. I'm done.
After all, the death penalty is his answer to everything. But who do you put to death? The school board that didn't obtain the posters? The principal and staff that didn't put the posters up? If this God is anything like the God of the Old Testament, he'll just likely condemn the entire school and kill them all, kids included.
Not even the younglings survived.
Good thing it isn't God enforcing the rule. The bill says that it becomes effective as soon as it's signed by the governor, which was on June 19th. How ironic. On Juneteenth, the governor of Louisiana signed into law a bill that would enslave its education system to a religion that endorses slavery. Lovely. I've seen multiple articles saying that the schools have until January 2025 to comply. I don't see that anywhere in the bill itself. Obviously, FFRF and the ACLU will file suit. They will win. The only losers will be the state of Louisiana that has to use its budget to defend this clearly unconstitutional action rather than using it to educate the children, and the school children of Louisiana that will be losing so much of the education funds to defending this frivolous lawsuit. The state is relying heavily on the Kennedy versus Bemerton decision as the basis for this law. In that case, a football coach was allowed to coerce children to pray with him on the field because the court managed to ignore the facts of the case, or rather, the majority of the court. The dissent pointed out the facts to the majority, which the majority conveniently forgot, in order to reach its decision that the football coach was merely engaging in private prayer, and the students just all voluntarily joined him. In Bremerton, the court found that the coach's prayer constituted private speech. If we are to apply that legal reasoning to this law, the court would need to find that the posters are the private speech of whoever donated the posters. But of course, private citizens have no right to post their opinions in school classrooms. And if the law allowed the posters on that basis, they would need to allow anyone to send posters to hang in classrooms. I sense the Satanic Temple donating some posters to Louisiana schools in their near future. Bemerton is not a justification for this law. It involved the alleged private speech of a single football coach. This is completely different. This is compelled speech. The government is compelling the schools to deliver this message to the children. Now, the state does have the authority to compel some speech of its teachers and school administrators. They compel them to teach curricula prescribed by the state and to use textbooks approved by the state. But what the state doesn't have the authority to do is prescribe a religion for its students. Islam does not acknowledge the Ten Commandments, although they do accept Moses as a prophet. Islam is likely to be the majority religion in the world by 2050, not in the United States, but in the world. Christianity is on the decline, both in the United States and worldwide. When Christianity is no longer the dominant religion, will Christians be content to have other religious views posted in their children's classrooms? I think not, which is why the law cannot stand. We cannot tolerate Christians imposing their religious beliefs on school children that don't hold to those beliefs. Worse, school children should not be made to feel unsafe in their classrooms for holding a different religious view. This law compels schools to give the message to the school children that this religion is the favored religion, a message the First Amendment was designed to prohibit. Proponents of the law argue that it has historic validity. This law was passed as a package deal on education reform. A few articles say that posting the Mayflower Compact and the Declaration of Independence are optional. I don't see anything about that in the bill. Possibly that's in one of the other bills that were passed in this package, or is already the law. Posting the Declaration of Independence I have no issue with. It's of historic value and is religiously neutral. What is the purpose of the law? It would appear that the purpose is to push Christianity. However, if the legislators stated that, it would be the death knell of the bill. Rather, they claim the Ten Commandments are the historical root of our government, that our Constitution is based on this moral code. Let's look at that claim. The first three commandments all have to do with one's relationship to the God that allegedly gave these commandments. This God is to be your only God. The second says that you will make no graven images. Ironic to post this in an art class, where making graven images is the assigned task. I'm sure most of the elementary students won't see the contradictions, but some high school students and certainly university students will catch the hypocrisy of posting in an art class the command not to make any graven images. There are graven images on our money. If this were ever intended to be a founding principle of our government, we certainly have never paid any heed to it. The First Commandment is expressly forbidden by the First Amendment to the Constitution, as is the Third. If making it illegal to pass any law prohibiting free speech and the free exercise of any form of religion, including no religion, one desires is the most fundamental right that we have as citizens of this country, and it is, then the Ten Commandments cannot be the basis of our law. It's that simple. The most fundamental of our rights as citizens of the United States, the right to free speech and the right to freedom of religion, are diametrically opposed to the First and Third Commandments. The First Commandment is supposed to be the most sacred of all the commandments, according to Jesus, or at least a version of it. When the most fundamental principle of Christianity and the most fundamental principle of our government are incompatible, incongruent, and diametrically opposed to one another, no case can be made that the government was founded on this principle. The argument has also been made that the Bible was taught in schools for much of our country's history, and that is true. It's true in part because at the founding of our country, books were expensive. Most families could only afford to have one. Public education didn't exist, so kids learned to read from the only book available to them. The tradition of teaching kids to read using the Bible continued into classrooms until it was discovered that that wasn't the best teaching tool, and then it was replaced by early readers. Eventually, it was abandoned altogether as schools became the secular institutions that they were always meant to be, with the government imposing no particular view on the students. How about the Fourth Commandment? Keep the Sabbath holy. Some people do this, but even most Christians have abandoned it. Schools sometimes have sports events and tournaments on Sunday. Would it be blasphemy to hold a school event on the Sabbath under a poster reminding them to keep the Sabbath holy? When is the Sabbath? Some say it's Saturday, some Sunday, the Lord's Day. What does it mean to keep it holy? The fleshing out of this rule in the Bible includes that one cannot pick up sticks on the Sabbath. Would picking up a relay baton at a track and field event constitute breaking the Sabbath? Now, I can see one purpose for this, to ridicule it. How inept does a God have to be that he needs the governor of Louisiana to post his laws in school classrooms for him? How feeble is your God that he needs you to post a reminder in school classrooms that you want people to not make graven images while the children are making graven images right under your sign? How can anyone take seriously a God that needs humans to post his command that they keep his Sabbath holy while they are breaking that Sabbath at the very school where that rule is posted? The message I get from all of this is that this God is irrelevant. We post these rules that this God allegedly wants people to follow, and then the teachers, administrators, and lawmakers that wanted these rules posted lead the children in breaking the rules. Are y'all trying to turn the kids into atheists? I think you might be doing a better job than I am, especially since I'm not targeting kids. I have a couple of videos for kids, but they aren't snarky like the ones I make for adults. There's a reason for that. The kids have good reason to believe in their God. Their parents or other adults in their lives told them to. Adults that feed them, clothe them, house them, and are in charge of them as they don't have the maturity to think and make responsible decisions for themselves. They depend on these adults and thus must trust them with their lives. They have no choice.
Bless the beast and the children, they have no choice.
But not the adults. Adults can decide for themselves what they believe, as they should be independent. And I say should be, as the Christian religion tells them that they are not. It tells them that they are dependent on their God, even as adults, even though no God provides for them or is there for them when they need someone. This is one area where Christianity is the antithesis of what it claims to be. Christianity claims that God is your loving Heavenly Father. What is the primary responsibility of a loving father? To raise children that are independent and can care for themselves. But what does this alleged Heavenly Father tell his children? To be forever dependent on him. This isn't the basis for a loving adult relationship. It's fine for a parent-child relationship, but adults should outgrow this. If God is unable to accept his grown children are responsible adults, then he doesn't deserve to be called their father. Disabled children remain dependent all their lives. Is that what the Christian God desires? Disabled children? Who benefits from a dependent relationship? When the dependent is unable to care for themselves, the dependent. But when the dependent is able, only the person depended upon gets any benefit from the relationship. The person held in dependency is stifled, stunted, and not allowed to grow. Is this the goal of the Louisiana legislature? To raise children to be lifelong dependents? The law is clearly unconstitutional. Maybe we should post a copy of the Constitution in the governor's office. Will this slide by and stand as law? It could. How? Because the challenges to it will take a bit of time to draft, and then it needs to be submitted to the Supreme Court, and that will have to decide whether or not it wants to hear it. Most likely it will. The liberals will want it done to strike it down, and the conservatives will want to see it chip away at the freedom of religion. The Supreme Court is in recess from late June or early July until the first week of October. They decide what cases to take beginning in October, and they take arguments on those cases until April. Decisions usually aren't announced until May. This case won't get to argument until the next presidential term. If Trump is elected, that could have massive effect on the decision. Trump has policies that support Project 2025. The massive overhaul of the government that would result will take a nightmare case like this and make it look like a pebble in our shoe by comparison. The damage we are looking at to reproductive health care, transgender rights, gay rights, and political freedoms will be massive and devastating. Fighting them will take all our effort and energy. Allowing something like this to slide through the cracks is entirely possible. If you think I exaggerate, take a look at John Oliver's look at what electing Trump in November could do to this country. The Ten Commandments aren't the historical base of our government. Few heed them anymore. God knows, if there is a God, that Trump, the champion of the evangelical right, doesn't give a hoot about the Ten Commandments. The God that allegedly prescribed them is an irrelevant God of a hopefully soon-to-be bygone era. We don't need to be dependent on this God to tell us what to do, nor do the school children of Louisiana. Just live your life.